Alright. So, Gattaca? Gattaca. So, Gattaca.
Alright. Let's start with the setting. So Gattaca is set in a nearish future America, where the main technological advancement is that you can inseminate.
Artificially, you can basically make test tube babies that are genetically perfect.
Yes.
So, you can make it so they won't have heart disease, they won't have asthma, they won't have any of that other disadvantageous stuff.
You can choose hair and eye color, make their phenotype as attractive as possible.
However, our protagonist's parents decide to not do that for the first child, so Vincent is born as a faith baby, and people don't like faith babies because they're not genetically perfect. So his mother wanted to have a faith baby because she believed in God instead of science, and that's viewed as dumb in this future. So when she has the baby, she's trying to name it Anton, which is his father's name, but then his father's like, no, let's name him Vincent, because apparently he doesn't think that his son, who is not genetically perfect, deserves his name. Then he ends up naming his little brother Anton.
Yeah. Well, so later in Vincent's life, they decide to have a second child, who they do make into a perfect baby, and that is the one who is named Anton.
Yes. And then, throughout their childhood, Anton's always growing faster. He doesn't need glasses. He's, like, giant and athletic and attractive. So, there's a big plot point that plays over and over throughout the movie where Vincent and Anton will go to the ocean. They'll basically play a game of chicken, where they'll swim out as far as they can. As far as they can, the first one to stop and turn back will lose. So Anton keeps beating Vincent throughout his life, and then eventually, at the end of like the family life part, before we get into the main plot, they decide to do it one more time, and then Vincent wins, and he has to save Anton's life because Anton almost drowns. So that's basically like the impetus of the plot. It's basically like, oh wait, I can do this, so I can be better than these genetically perfect people.
So, Vincent then decides that he wants to join the space program Gattaca. And unfortunately, he can't, because in this future world, if you ever go to a job interview, they can take a sample of your DNA and use it to find out how genetically pure you are. And so it would be impossible for Vincent to get a job here, because they would just take a hair sample and figure out, oh, this guy is inferior, so we're not going to hire him.
Come on.
So, yeah. He instead works as a janitor at Gattaca for a while before finding this program, which is illegal.
It's technically fraud. Although, could it really be fraud if the person you're defrauding is complicit?
I don't know. Probably.
Yeah.
It's probably some.
That's illegal. That's a legal question, not a science fiction question.
Anyway, so through this program, he becomes what is called a borrowed ladder, which is in reference to the DNA ladder. And this is where you assume the identity of a genetically perfect person. So, the program finds him this guy named Jerome, who was injured overseas. He was like an Olympic swimmer.
Yeah. Got second.
Yeah.
Also a major plot point.
And was in a car accident, which made him wheelchair bound. But there aren't any records of this accident or injury in the US. So he's perfectly willing to give up his identity to Vincent so that Vincent can join Gattaca. So,
Yeah.
He does.
So he does. So Vincent is now in Gattaca as Jerome. But he doesn't really look like Jerome, since Ethan Hawke and Jude Law, and Ethan Hawke and Jude Law don't really look that much alike.
No.
But the explanation they give for this is, people don't look at pictures anymore, and you're like, no. But
Regardless, they do what they can to make them look similar.
Yeah.
They make Vincent 2 inches taller in a not very well explained but still sufficiently disturbing.
Yeah, basically what they do is they show Vincent and Tony Shalhoub, whose name on Wikipedia is German. That's apparently the character name, even though it's never actually said.
Yeah.
So all they show is them arguing. They never actually say what they're doing. Then it cuts to a shot of a hacksaw. Then it cuts to a shot of Vincent lying on the floor with his legs in braces. So you're like, what was that? So basically what you assume is that they cut open his legs and put tubes in there, or giant
them longer. I don't know.
shin pipes. I don't even know. He's taller now.
Yes.
And then every morning,
they dye his hair. They give him color contacts and change everything they can to make him look similar enough to Jerome. And he does look reasonably similar by the end of the scene.
Yeah.
And he also has to every day do all of this stuff. Like he has to clip off all of his fingernails and replace them with Jerome's fingernails. And he has to put these fingerprint overlays that also have blood samples under them.
Scrub off all his loose skin.
Yep.
And then he has to bring urine samples,
Yes.
which bursts the most famous line of the movie. There's more vodka in this piss than there is piss, because Jerome drinks a lot. A lot.
Anyway.
Like when you meet him, isn't he holding a bottle of vodka when you meet him?
Probably.
Yeah. Because that's what happens in this movie.
Anyway. So the plot begins to develop when there is a murder at Gattaca of this
Lab
tech guy.
Bludgeoned to death with a keyboard.
Yes. And they find in their sweep of the area an eyelash belonging to Vincent, which they scan and connect it to this person who used to be a janitor there, but who's now since disappeared.
So he is believed to be dead, and apparently his family believes he's dead, but you don't really see the family, except for his brother, for the last 2/3 of the movie. They just kind of vanish, the parents do. So you're just like, okay, I guess they assume he's dead.
So now the pressure is kind of on as Vincent has to keep up the guise of Jerome under very intense scrutiny, specifically when these detectives show up and he's being tested to go into space, and it's even more difficult to keep up the ruse because he has this heart condition. There's this.
They don't say. Do they say what the condition is?
No, it's implied that it's an irregular heartbeat.
Yeah.
Because in order to pass these tests, he's recording the heartbeat of Jerome
And then playing it back through the monitor.
Yeah.
It's never really explained how that... Is it explained how that works, or is that just kind of like...
I think he just
science?
I don't know.
So it's like basically he sticks a little...
Yeah,
playback
all of the
thing.
people have a little thingamabobber on their heart as they're
running out of drum
running
bells.
for this test. And he somehow modifies his to play back Jerome's heartbeat.
It works. So yeah, and then once that happens, eventually he finds out that his brother Anton is the lead detective on the case. So Anton doesn't want to really suspect his brother because their relationship is it's complicated. It's like Anton knows he's like genetically superior. He does kind of lord it over Vincent, but not to an absurd degree. So Anton is not really there is no real principal antagonist. Like, Anton is pretty much the closest thing, but he's not really a bad guy. He's just trying to do his job. Kind of like Tommy Lee Jones in The Fugitive, only less developed.
Anyways, so Anton eventually manages to piece together that Jerome is actually Vincent.
Yes. But he can't prove it.
No. Is this where their confrontation occurs?
That's at like the very end. Before that happens, Anton is in the building, and Vincent/Jerome knows that he will recognize him if he sees him, because he doesn't look that different. He'll still be able to recognize that it's his brother. So he leaves, but Anton knows that he was there, so he goes to the love interest, Uma Thurman, whose name is Irene. Yeah, her character's name is Irene. And then he's like, take me to his house. She's just like, fine. But Vincent can't get there fast enough, so Jerome has to... There's like this very dramatic scene where Jerome has to get himself up the stairs and be like sitting in a chair and be himself, which he does. And there's like this giant dramatic action-y music build up to him like pulling himself upstairs. And it's like, it shouldn't be that interesting, but it is.
Yeah.
So, because it's like, it's a very like climactic moment for his character to see if he can actually do something with his life.
So he manages to get into the chair and tells the two to come in. And Irene obviously is very confused.
Yeah, she's
to
like,
see,
the hell is this person? Because she has no idea
to see
that
not Jerome.
that Vincent is a borrowed letter.
But
she goes along.
But at this point, she figures it out.
Yeah.
When she sees Jerome sitting there, but doesn't let Anton onto it.
Yeah, and then Jerome makes her kiss him, and she's just like, I hate you, but she doesn't.
Yeah.
And then he's like, meh.
Yeah.
And then after that, it's found out that the mission director... Oh yeah, and then the mission director, who's like this very single-minded guy. He's just like, I am the mission director, this is a manned mission to Titan, this window is only open once every however many absurd amount of years. So it turns out that he murdered the lab techie because... reasons. Why?
Well, because the lab techie was... one way or another bringing up reasons that they wouldn't be able to go on the mission at this point.
And the mission director didn't like that.
Which
so
the director was not okay with.
But by the time that he tells the detective people, which is Anton and Alan Arkin, there's no way to stop the mission. It's basically already going to happen. So he's just like, I don't care anymore. I did it. And then Jerome/Vincent manages to get on the spaceship and launches into space. Well, oh yeah. I'm skipping a little bit. I'm getting to it.
Alright. So, Anton now knows that, so the case is over and he has to leave, but he's pretty confident there's something fishy going on with Jerome and he really wants to know. And he eventually figures out that it's Vincent through kind of a confusing scene at a ball.
Oh yeah, that's right. So they're like, Irene and Vincent, who she still thinks is Jerome at this point, they just left like a piano concert thing and they go to a restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
And then Anton walks in with Alan Arkin and it's just like, okay, we're sweeping the area for this fugitive person. They're like, oh crap. So they go running out the back door and Vincent beats the guy half to death.
Yeah.
And then he goes and hides in an alleyway, and then Anton screams out his name and he doesn't reply because Anton's like, oh, this is my brother, and he's committing felonies.
Yeah. Anyway, so the case is over, but Anton is certain that Vincent is committing fraud and stuff, so he wants to stay behind and find him. He eventually does confront him in his office, and they get into a very brotherly argument, and they decide that they're going to play chicken again.
So this is a little silly.
Yeah.
They walk out onto the beach in their like full business suits. Take most of it off. Most of it. Very important clarification. And then they go swimming in the ocean. In the pool that the interns are swimming with.
This is the big climactic scene where they swim really far out. Like, at this point, they're more than halfway to the other side, apparently.
Apparently. It's never really clarified what kind of body of water it is.
Maybe it's a bay, I don't know.
We're forced to assume it's a bay because it's like, it'll be faster if we go to the other end, and at this point, like, we were assuming it was like an ocean. We're like, holy crap, how long have you been swimming?
And, of course, this is where Vincent wins, because of what else would happen.
That otherwise that would completely defeat the purpose.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't have a theme, and the movie would suck.
So, Vincent wins, and that has to help Anton get back to shore.
Yeah.
And then at this point, Anton himself realizes why Vincent is doing this, because he knows that he can, effectively gives up on the case, and Vincent gets to get in the rocket ship and go to Titan.
And then, Jerome kills himself.
Yeah.
Because reasons. I think, like, what I came up with was it's because he doesn't feel his life really has purpose anymore, because he's done all he can for Vincent, can't do much else with his life, so he leaves, like, years worth of urine and blood and other samples, climbs into the little incinerator and sets himself on fire. Then there's this shot of, like, the fire. You can't see Jerome at all, but there's a fire and you see the metal, like the silver medal from the swimming medal from the Olympics, sitting on his chest and melting in the fire. And then it cuts back to a shot of Vincent on the spaceship Titan. Then he opens a letter from Jerome, see that there's a hair sample in it, and then the movie ends. And you're just like,
yeah,
okay.
So
that is Gattaca.
That is Gattaca. Yeah. So
now we're
gonna go themes, motifs,
sci-fi,
elements,
and then criticisms.
Criticism, yeah. So the themes are pretty cut and dry here. We've got prejudice. So in this world, if you're not perfect, you're worthless.
Basically, like, pretty much all of Gattaca is like the genetic super people, and then the janitors are all like these schlubby old white dudes.
Yeah. We've also got these themes of like untapped potential, sort of. So, like, Vincent doesn't seem like much, but it turns out he's actually far superior in a lot of ways to these perfect people. So we've got, like, a theme of not judging, a theme of how you can't judge people empirically.
Yeah.
Because that's what this entire society is built around, and Vincent is there to prove that that doesn't work.
Yeah. So he's just like the it's somewhat changed hero's journey story.
A few more minor themes. We've got purpose in life. That's mostly the story of Jerome, of how he there's this kind of character development moment where he explains that it wasn't an accidental thing that he got crippled. He did it intentionally.
Because he felt like his life had lacked purpose, so he just threw himself in front of a car.
Yeah. And this is the big struggle for him, is trying to find any sort of purpose in his life, and he ultimately only does
for a
briefly.
Little while, and then the purpose goes away, so he's like, oh, I don't have purpose, I'm gonna die now.
Yeah. Additionally, we have some obvious themes of brotherly rivalry, and
that's about it. This is not the deepest movie, but the prejudice thing is a nice little analogy to modern times.
Yeah,
it's kind of like racism, sexism, all smushed into one. Except the funny part, there aren't a lot of women. There are not a lot of non-white people in this movie.
Oh.
It's a very white men movie.
Alright, so now we can talk about some of our motifs and symbols.
So,
the biggest one to me is cars.
There are a lot of cars. There is a lot of tar in this movie. There's this
Yeah.
one part where, to get through a checkpoint, Jerome takes out his contacts, throws them away, because otherwise they'll see contacts and be like, oh, you're a fraud, you're wearing contacts. Jerome Morrow isn't supposed to have contacts because he's genetically perfect. So he takes them and throws them away, and then they get through the checkpoint, and then they pull over, and Irene just runs across the road, and she's like, here, come look at this thing, and then Jerome tries to be, like, can't see because he's almost blind, so all he sees is like, these colored blurs. So he's like, oh god, I'm gonna die.
These cars rushing past, and this is this big contrast between him and the actual Jerome, where Jerome leapt in front of the cars and Vincent has to avoid them, because Jerome is blindly looking for any sort of purpose, and Vincent is very focused on only one thing that he wants to do. And I don't know,
So that's
big cool scene.
Yeah, and then there's the spaceship launches.
Yeah.
Which
So
you
while
see a few of
while
those.
he's working there as a janitor, he watches every single launch from Gattaca. And then even when he's working there, he watches every single launch.
Which no one else does. It's
Yeah.
just him.
Because to him, that's the most important thing. The only thing he wants to do with his life is go into space. So the spaceship launches are, I don't know, symbolically his purpose in life.
Yeah. And there's just like general technological advancement, like the moving forward in the detection of DNA. It's like there's this whole giant database thing. The main scientist guy, the one who doesn't get murdered, is there are a lot of interactions with him that are like the funniest parts.
Yeah.
Where there's like they interact like 3 times. There's like 15 penis jokes. Just like stand there and watch him like pee into a cup when he actually has like a little bag with a tube running out it.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Finally, we talk about these sci-fi elements. The biggest one, obviously, is this genetic engineering test tube baby thing. It's really the whole point of the movie. Additionally, we've got a lot of weird technology in their gym. Like they have this weird gyroscope
Spinny
thing.
Like it looks like some weird perversion of like a spaceship test in an amusement park ride, and you're looking at it. It may be like nauseous just watching. It's like, ugh, why?
Yeah.
Why?
We've got these cool heart monitor thingamabobbers. We've got
No one explains what they are.
Yeah.
You're just like, they have a thing on their chest, we can hear their heartbeat.
Yep.
We're gonna assume
Yeah.
it's a microphone.
Yeah, futuristic cars and stuff, but most of the advancements all revolve around checking DNA. Like every time Vincent goes to work, he has to have a blood sample taken from the tip of his finger. It's like everybody's diabetic in this world.
Yeah.
And so there's all sorts of eye scanning and urine tests and all this stuff that people are doing all the time to keep track of DNA to stop fraud.
Peter! Peter!
You keep talking.
Yeah. All right. So, criticisms. Probably the weakest point of this movie is the acting for people who aren't Jerome or Vincent.
Yeah, there is a lot of underacting in this
Yeah,
movie.
Uma
Like,
Thurman does not
Uma
make
Thurman.
it believable at all. Anton is only marginally okay.
So basically, for Uma Thurman, her face is like the entire movie.
Yeah.
It's just blank, and
It's-
you're like, emote, please, I beg you.
And so it makes it difficult for, during a lot of the scenes, to really feel some of the drama and the important stuff
Like,
going on.
Where you feel the most emotion is at the end,
Yeah.
when Anton and Vincent are talking.
Yeah.
That's like the best acting point for a character that is not
But-
Jerome.
Yeah. The
Or
only
Vincent.
good chemistry in the entire movie is between Jerome and Vincent.
Jerome.
Like
Couple now.
Anton and Vincent do sort of a brotherly thing, but it feels forced and weird.
Yeah.
As does a lot of the whole movie.
It's just it's a really good story. It's got really good themes. It's got like good.
The imagery is
The imagery is
fantastic.
fantastic. It's shot really well.
Mhm.
It's a gorgeous movie, but the acting just
The acting doesn't sell.
not there, which kind of makes it a bit like you feel a little empty at the end, but it's better than most.
Yeah. Further criticisms, a lot of the scenes of like big development and drama feel either really heavy-handed or phoned in.
Yeah, like
The
they're
chicken scene of the swimming just feels like, look,
imagery.
he can do stuff. Themes.
Look, everyone. Ooh.
But then you've got like this stuff at the end with like Jerome's suicide, where it's just like, yeah, no, he's committed suicide. You get it, right?
And you're just like, no. Explain, please. Yeah, then there are parts where it's just like, oh, we need to have dialogue about the movie now. Let's have dialogue about the movie, which is a lot of like Uma Thurman's character purpose. It's like, one, we need to have a woman. Two, she needs to spout exposition in literally every scene. That's kind of her. She is. I wouldn't go so far as to call her like a living MacGuffin, because there are other female characters who that would apply to, but she's not one of them, which makes me happy. But she is very underdeveloped.
Yeah.
And underacted and under everything.
Yeah. But overall, it's still a movie I really like, and it's one I think I would watch again.
Oh, okay, but before we're done, can we just discuss like there's a point in the movie where it's after Vincent has beaten the crap out of the guy and they've escaped from the restaurant, where there's a sex scene. And there's this one shot where it's like the camera is completely upside down. You're like, why? Can we tilt the camera up again? It's like I don't get why they did that. That was the one part. That was like, there are parts of the movie that are a little oblique, but you can understand them. That one, you're just like, why is the camera upside down? That doesn't make any sense.
Alright. So, good movie. Some weird stuff.
Not a perfect movie.
Not perfect, but I personally really like it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
There's more criticism in this review.